The Galactic University Xenobiology lecture hall buzzed with the chittering, clicking, and harmonic tones of 100 different species. Professor Zexthara, a towering crystalline being from Kepler 442b, stood at the holographic display, his faceted body refracting the light into rainbow patterns across the amphitheater walls. Today we examine the curious case of the humans, Professor Zexthara announced, his voice resonating through translation devices embedded in each student's auditory receptors. A species that has recently joined our galactic community, displaying remarkable technological advancement despite their primitive biological origins. In the third row, Adnan shifted uncomfortably in his specially designed chair, one of only 3 humans attending the university. Beside him, his girlfriend Nehal raised an eyebrow, her dark eyes glinting with amusement at the professor's condescending tone. As we can observe from their dental structure, the professor continued, projecting a 3-dimensional model of a human skull, the species exhibits the classic markers of herbivorous evolution. Note the flat molars, perfectly adapted for grinding plant matter, and the relatively small canine teeth, clearly vestigial remnants from some distant omnivorous ancestor. A student from Proxima Centauri, resembling a cross between a mantis and a flower, raised one of its petal-like appendages. Professor, if humans are herbivores, how did they develop such advanced hunting technologies? Their historical records show extensive use of projectile weapons and traps. Professor Zexthara's crystalline form flickered with what his species considered laughter. An excellent observation, Petal Class Vexini. This is a perfect example of evolutionary misdirection. Humans likely developed these tools for territorial defense or perhaps to hunt other herbivores' predators. Their aggressive nature, which we'll discuss next week, stems from competition over grazing lands, much like the great herd beasts of Tao Teti. Nehal leaned over to whisper in Adnan's ear, her voice barely audible. "Are you going to let him get away with this?" Adnan glanced around the lecture hall, noting how every alien species seemed to be nodding in agreement with the professor's assessment. Some even took notes on their various recording devices. His jaw tightened. Furthermore, the professor continued, warming to his subject. Human agriculture proves this point definitively. They cultivate vast fields of grains, fruits, and vegetables. Their entire civilization is built around plant-based sustenance. It's really quite remarkable how they've managed to achieve spaceflight while maintaining such a limited dietary scope. A gaseous being from the Veil Nebula pulsed with curiosity. But Professor, what about their reported consumption of other organisms? Some records suggest propaganda and mistranslation. Professor Zexthara interrupted with a dismissive wave of his geometric appendage. Humans are notorious for their storytelling and exaggeration. They likely created these tales to intimidate rival tribes or to seem more formidable to potential threats. No truly herbivorous species could sustain the muscle mass and brain development we observe in humans while consuming other living beings. That was the final straw. Adnan stood up slowly, his movement causing a ripple of attention throughout the amphitheater. Several alien students turned their various sensory organs toward him, curious about the human's reaction. "Professor," Adnan said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics, "I believe there might be some inaccuracies in your assessment." Professor Zexthara's crystalline form shifted, refracting light in patterns that suggested mild irritation. Student Adnan, while I appreciate your species' enthusiasm for participation, I must remind you that this is a scientific discussion based on observable evidence and evolutionary biology. Personal anecdotes are hardly— "This isn't anecdotal," Adnan interrupted, reaching into his backpack. "It's my lunch." The hall fell silent as Adnan pulled out a carefully wrapped package. He unwrapped it methodically, revealing a thick sandwich. But this wasn't just any sandwich. This was Adnan's grandmother's special recipe: slow-roasted lamb with garlic, layered with grilled chicken, topped with salmon jerky, and finished with aged cheese from Earth's finest dairy cows. The aroma hit the lecture hall like a wave. Students with enhanced olfactory senses immediately began exhibiting signs of distress or fascination. A few herbivorous species in the front row actually fainted. "This," Adnan announced, holding up the sandwich, "contains the flesh of no fewer than 4 different Earth animals: the lamb, the chicken, the salmon, and the dairy products from cows. This is what I eat for lunch on a regular Tuesday." Professor Zexthara's form went completely still, his usual light refraction ceasing entirely. That cannot be. The evolutionary markers indicate that we're omnivores, Nihal interjected, standing beside her boyfriend. Those flat molars you mentioned? Perfect for grinding both plant matter and cooked meat. Those small canines? Small compared to pure carnivores, but perfectly adequate for tearing flesh when combined with our incredible jaw strength and cooking technology. Adnan took a large bite of his sandwich, the sound of his teeth cutting through the various meats audible in the pin-drop silence of the hall. He chewed thoughtfully, then swallowed. The reason human civilization advanced so quickly, Adnan continued, is because we didn't have to spend all day grazing like pure herbivores, and we didn't have to spend all our energy hunting like pure carnivores. We ate everything. Plants gave us quick energy and nutrients. Meat gave us the protein density needed for our large brains and complex muscle development. A student from Alpha Centauri, resembling a floating jellyfish, pulsed with nervous energy. But the implications, if humans can eat other sentient species. We don't eat sentient species, Nihal clarified quickly. We have strict ethical codes about that. But yes, we are apex predators on our home planet. We hunted megafauna to extinction, survived ice ages, and conquered every environment from Arctic tundra to tropical rainforests by eating whatever we could find. Professor Zexthara's form began to flicker erratically. This changes everything. The psychological profiles, the diplomatic assessments, the military predictions. Adnan took another bite of his sandwich, savoring the complex flavors. Professor, I think your next lecture should cover why it's important to actually ask a species about their biology before making assumptions based on incomplete data. The hall erupted into chaos as students began frantically updating their notes, sending emergency communications to their respective governments, and in some cases, quietly moving to seats farther away from the humans. As the professor struggled to regain control of his class, Nihal leaned over to Adnan and whispered, "Think we should tell them about our teeth growing back if we lose them?" Adnan grinned, showing those supposedly small canines. "Let's save something for next week's lecture." The sandwich had never tasted better.